Hi, I'm Angela Cavanaugh, the Executive Director for CAI, and I would like to welcome all the attendees and thank our partners, the Board of Directors, and the CAI team for today's program. Some housekeeping rules. All participants will be muted today. Please type your question in the question box and be sure to name the panelists that you would like the question directed to. Managers, if you need to, please email Jackie at Jacqueline, JACLYN, at CAI-NJ.org. And just a note, you must be in attendance for the entire presentation to qualify for a certificate. I would now like to introduce Deb Rizzi for the Membership Committee. Welcome, Deb.
Thank you so much, Angela. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Deborah Rizzi, and I'm the president of Risco, a brand-led marketing agency based out of Spring Lake. I've been a member for 1.5 years, and I'm also a proud member of the CAI Membership Committee. Today, I wanted to open up this webinar by reminding our members to renew your memberships, stay engaged, and if you're new to our organization and are not a member, to inquire about joining this great association. As you may know, we're made up of 3 different types of members: our homeowner leaders, our managers and management companies, and also our business partners. I wanted to take the opportunity to outline some of the benefits and opportunities for each of our members. Starting with homeowner leaders, CAI members have access to CAI New Jersey's ADR program, which is a cost-effective way to fulfill your association's legal obligation. Best community associations have the best boards. They're educated, knowledgeable, and prepared to lead their communities successfully. Help your board succeed. CAI New Jersey provides a robust library of content for community leaders, as well as ongoing virtual learning opportunities. Access to industry leaders such as accounting, engineering, insurance, and legal. And not to mention, you can have 3 to 15 board members and key volunteers added at one low price. Save the date. For our Community Association Roundtable discussion on Thursday, November 5th, where it's free for homeowner leaders and managers to attend. For our managers and management companies, access to print and online directory for industry leaders to help your communities navigate these unparalleled times. Earn continuing education credits at a free or discounted rate, and utilize our 2020 virtual trade show video catalog, which will help you navigate through all of our top industry professionals. To our business partners, continued opportunities to build your brand, committed to helping you with platforms such as online Zoom seminars and provide the necessary education to support your business. There are also networking opportunities with other industry leaders by connecting with them virtually. So the fun stuff, our upcoming events. The virtual expo is launched, so please visit CAI-NJ.org to see the schedule of video releases and current video resources that are ready to be viewed. This is a resource as well into 2021. We have our Wednesday webinars, which of course you're participating in today. Every Wednesday at noon, join our educational program, allowing 1 CEU for those who need accreditation. This Friday, October 30th, register to watch the HOA feud at 2 p.m., where our business partners and managers battle it out for bragging rights. And lastly, help our FAST committee spread some holiday cheer and donate to our Adopt a Family. We'll be adopting multiple families to ensure that they get to enjoy the holiday season through the Interfaith Neighbors, a local Monmouth County organization. We are asking that members support this initiative by sending gift cards and donations to be purchased for purchasing gifts to the CAI New Jersey office. Your help and support are greatly appreciated to bring cheer this holiday season to these multiple families. If you have any questions regarding renewing or becoming a member, please feel free to reach out to me. My email address is deborah@risco.com, which is DEBRA@RIZCO.com. Thank you and enjoy this great event.
Thanks so much, Deb. All right, well, our first speaker is David Grand of Becht Engineering. He has more than 30 years of experience in administration of engineering and construction management services for residential and commercial properties, including roofing, siding, decking, structural, asphalt paving, and drainage system corrections and upgrades. As a licensed building inspector, he performs building inspections for code compliance and proper construction methods. He has prepared capital reserve studies for common interest associations, including homeowners and condominium associations, for over 30 years. As a CAI designated reserve specialist, he has overseen the preparation of reserve studies, including development of pricing of capital replacement projects, inspection of capital items, and creation of funding plans. He's led a group to develop software to prepare capital reserve studies, including the use of mobile devices for gathering information on client properties. Welcome, David.
Thank you. Sorry for that long bio. Maybe that was too much. So welcome, everybody. I'm Dave Rand from Becht Engineering. Can everybody see the presentation now? Good. Okay. So I could talk for hours on capital reserves.
Oh, David, I'm so sorry. Your screen is all white. I think we're looking at the wrong screen.
Okay.
Perfect. We got it.
Awesome. So I could talk for hours about capital reserve studies, but I've got 12 to 15 minutes. So I want to talk to you about how we can make our reserve studies more accurate. So capital reserve studies are based on a lot of estimates, and those estimates are based on, or can change based on, new code requirements, new materials, new building methods, and inflation. So there's a lot of different things that can affect these future costs. And in some cases, these future projects that we're attempting to predict can be decades in the future. Another issue is the life expectancy of components in the projects that associations will have to perform. Hidden conditions, variability of maintenance, and weather make estimating the life expectancy of reserve components difficult. But while capital reserve studies are based on estimates of future project costs and timings, there are things that we can do to make them as accurate as possible. So some of those things would be determining what to include in a reserve study. And the first thing that we have to establish is whether it's a common element. Is it something that's owned in common with all the homeowners? There are times where the master deed and the documents for the community are not exactly clear, and they may even contradict each other in areas of the documents. So in those cases, we'll go to the association's attorney and ask for a interpretation of the master deed to determine whether those common elements should be included. The other thing that we use as a judgment method is whether it's something that's cyclical in nature and a complete replacement. So these are not one-time projects to correct deficient construction, and they're not maintenance-based. So I am not infrequently asked whether an association should include a project that they might be currently undertaking in a phased approach to replace things like deficient underground piping or something like that. But those are things that are not, excuse me, cyclical in nature. They'll be a one-time thing, so they're not appropriate for inclusion in a reserve study. The other thing is components with an estimated remaining life of 30 years or less. So it's important to note that that's the estimated remaining life of 30 years. So a new community might decide not to reserve for something like vinyl siding or retaining walls, but when the community becomes 10 or 15 years old, then it will become necessary to include those things. So understanding that concept is important when to include certain components. Estimating the costs of future projects. The best costs are obtained from existing records of completed projects within the community. So partnering with our clients, our managers, and our boards, we always want to ask that boards and managers keep good records of projects that you've completed so that we have actual costs. Where there are not actual costs that are available, costs that we keep from prior projects that we've designed, bid, and overseen is a useful way to get actual real-world costs. So when Becht Engineering is designing and bidding and overseeing a roof replacement or a siding or a paving project, we keep track of that in a database so that we know what actual costs for similar types of projects, what the prices that a community should expect to see. And when there's not that type of background, we use a national cost estimating service that provides costing based on a nationwide database of projects, actual project cost experience. So one of the things that when a reserve provider is asked to perform a reserve study, you may not have any previous familiarity with a project or a client site. So knowing the ages of the components in the reserve is important. So reserve updates are typically done from a previous study that was done. So knowing the correct ages of things that like roofs and paving and siding and decks and so forth, it's important. So an association that keeps detailed records of when projects were completed, including the quantities, is important. So I talk about quantities because some types of projects typically get done all as one phase or very few phases that are separated by a short number of years, like roofing and siding and paving projects. But sidewalks, for example, are typically replaced on an as-needed basis every year, every 2 years, every 5 years, something like that. And we'll often be provided with information about, yeah, we did some sidewalks in 5 years ago, but not necessarily the quantity of square feet of sidewalks that was replaced. So anything that a community can do to keep records of projects that they've completed, and this also speaks to doing updates on a regular basis, because if updates are done every 5 years, then the institutional memory of folks is a lot more trustworthy then. You're not going many, many years between reserve updates, so that remembrance of when projects happen becomes challenging. So another thing is life expectancy. It's important for owners, boards, and managers to keep track of known issues with things. So if you know that you're having certain types of roof leak issues, or your maintenance team is finding deterioration of trim in certain areas, and maybe that's as a result of some improper flashing, it's important to let your reserve provider know about some of these things, because it can speak to the life expectancy of some of the major construction that you have. So it might lead us, if we knew this information, it might lead us to shorten or potentially even extend the life of components so that they're more accurate. So we want to be as accurate as we can be in that regard. So the other topic I want to talk about is also using the correct reserve balance. If a reserve study is to be implemented in the upcoming fiscal year, the balance should be projected forward to the start date by estimated remaining contributions in the current period. So let's say we're doing a reserve study in June that is for the 2021 fiscal period, and it won't be implemented until January of 2021. Really what we're doing is taking a snapshot in time of the reserve fund for the community as of January 1st, 2021. So if we're using documents from May of 2020 showing a reserve balance, that isn't really accurate. So we want to project forward the budgeted contributions that'll be made so that the reserve fund is accurately portraying the amount that's in the reserve fund. The other issue that we come across is sometimes when there's a current project going on, and obviously this is more important when it's a large project and a reserve study, or maybe even a phase project, that any payments for work that's being done during the year be phased with or synchronized with the age that we're showing for those components in the study. So for example, if you're in the midst of a roof replacement project, not all the roofs are done and not all the roofs are original still. Some are replaced and some are not. So what I would recommend in that case is to project forward the reserve balance, showing the roofs as being replaced. So we would show 0 years age for the roofs, but we would show the balance of the fund netted out of all payments that would be made to the contractor. So, you know, that's how we'll get the most accurate reserve, the most accurate study. The other thing I wanted to just talk about was just briefly about boards and managers making decisions about how to reserve. You get your reserve study from your reserve study provider. And this graph that I'm showing is an example of closing balances for a community over 30 years. The top line is reserving at the 5% threshold method, so the least conservative method for contributions. And you see that the balances remain positive over time. The lower line that you're looking at is closing balances with a contribution that was 10% less than what was recommended. So we frequently hear from boards, we just can't do that and we need to do a little less. But you can see that multiple times by following that budgeting, the balance actually goes negative. So in essence, they won't have the money to do those projects. So that's what I had in terms of a presentation. So I'd like to open it up to questions.
All right, we do have a few questions. Let's see. Underground pipes are a common component, but like you said, most likely a one-time replacement for use life longer than 30 years. So can the engineer include notes on any component that would exceed 30 years, but the association should still prepare to put away money to do? Can this be added in the notes section or in the addendum?
So what we'll sometimes do in a reserve study is show the item in there, but show it at a very, very low cost, so that we'll show the quantity, but a very low cost, so that it doesn't affect the contributions that are going into the fund, but that it's highlighted in the study for future representation, so that when it gets to be a project that might be 30 years in the future, then the board would consider that.
All right. We have another question. Should vinyl siding be included in a reserve study?
So, you know, sort of the same answer. The 30-year rule would kind of indicate that if the community was new, that you wouldn't need to reserve for it. That's not a hard and fast rule. You can bend that rule on the side of reserving early for things. The concept is that it's felt that 30 years is enough time to save money for any type of a project. But what that'll do is once the community becomes 10 years old, then that siding would need to be included. And what you'll see is that the contribution requirement will kind of go up significantly to account for that new item being added. So I think it's a good idea to, if the association can handle it, to include the vinyl siding.
And what costs should be included in the estimate of future projects?
So really anything that's related to implementing a project is fair game for including in the cost estimate of that project. So permit fees, design, if you need an engineer or design professional to design the project, help to oversee the project. Sometimes management companies are charging for major projects for their additional time involvement. All of those things are fair game for inclusion in the cost estimate of the project.
Great. That is all the questions for now. If anybody has any additional questions for Dave at any point, please feel free to send them over in the question box and we can ask them at a later time. All right, Lenny.
Yes.
Lenny manages the business development for Frank Macchione Paving, which has been in business for 50 years. They are a paving construction company that does public, commercial, and residential paving. Today, Lenny will be discussing asphalt milling and paving. Welcome, Lenny.
Hi, everybody. I just want to thank the CAI team for putting this all together, giving us opportunity to talk a little bit about our companies and possibly, collaborating with everybody and growing as a team as well. My is not as detailed as David. David was fantastic, and we actually a little bit on the similar spectrum of working together with construction and building a platform of when to do things and when not to do things. And it's the same thing with asphalt. Asphalt is usually done on a project basis, is how we dissect it in a way, because with every project is a budget, and I would go to like an association and to determine what is needed through safety of the streets. So if I can save them money with sealing the streets instead of paving or milling, I would do so. But let's get back into what is milling. And asphalt milling is an affordable solution to restore streets. And the whole process of this is, when you talk about milling, is skimming the top coat of the asphalt. And people say that's kind of simple, but when you're working with the streets in associations, you have to do test coring. And because it's not just scraping a top layer, you want to make sure that the underneath work is done correctly as well. You can easily scrape a layer off the street and you can grow it into stone, and you can see if whoever built the street did it correctly. But I want to go back into my company that I work for, Frank Macchione. We've been in business for 50 years, and we've been derived around one simple solution. It's all around customer service. We believe in treating each property like it's our own, and we want to make sure every customer and every manager is happy and lucky to deal with the safety of the process. And we do it one way, and it's only the right way. So I didn't know if I'd go into detail what type of asphalts do you put down. There's all different types. There's types for commercially, there's I4, there's I5 types of asphalt that you put down. There's a base asphalt that you put down. When we go to an association property, I look for everything from curb cracks, sidewalks, to the basin damage, to storm drain damage, and we do a complete analysis and update the management company on what is going on with your property. Because in asphalt business, it's easily neglect. It's pretty much the last thing anybody wants to deal with, and we might try to make it a little simpler for the management companies to see the notes, and like I said, maybe they can give it to David and they can put it in their database to see what was done, when was it done, how is it done correctly, what's the PSI for the sidewalks. We also do concrete solutions as well. So we all kind of collaborate together with companies like Dave to doing the project correctly. Other than that, the machine, we try to, when you mill, the technology that Frank Macchione uses, we update our equipment every 5 years, because the milling machines are constantly changing with new engineering and computer graded systems. So back in the day, you kind of had to eyeball it. Now you just punch in a number and it does the correct pitch. Takes so much as milling. Machine can do between just a top coat to 8 inches of asphalt removed from the street. The machines are so high tech and amazing. We also do residential paving, and residential paving is a totally different ball game. You remove everything from the residential driveway, everything right to the dirt, and then you replace it with between 3 and 6 inches of crushed stone. Then you roll it and let it settle for about a week and a half. And then you replace it about 3 inches of pressed asphalt. We also involved in our commercial milling is lines. We do all the handicapped lines as well, and all the streets lines, and But I just wanted to try to keep it as basic as possible. It's not as detailed as Dave and his was a lot better than mine. I just want to thank everybody for listening to my little, basic insight of milling. And if you need any other questions answered, I will be happy to answer them. I can't hear you.
Sorry about that.
I kept it basic as possible, and I didn't know, we can get into the engineering part of it. We can get into, the plans. We get lots of plans, but the basics to it, milling, is pretty much just scratching the top layer of your existing street and, resurfacing it with new asphalt.
Well, that's actually what our first question. It's what exactly?
Well, there you go. Milling is scratching your top layer of the existing streets to the depth that's needed through the plans or that we see fit for the area, because some areas might have potholes, and if the potholes are too deep, when you do the milling, you have to do repair. You can't just resurface a pothole. You have to make sure everything's to grade and smooth before replacing a new layer.
All right, and I think you answered this, but it says, do you do residential properties?
Yes, we actually do that. It's, like we do all residential properties. That is, ripping and replacing the existing driveway to the spec that the customer wants. That's, ripping the old, putting down new crushed stone, rolling it, making sure no water is driven, it settles, and then replacing it with a new hot asphalt.
We have another one that just came through. How often do you need to replace asphalt?
Well, it depends. Residentially, it could last 20 to 30 years, and that depends if it's done correctly and if you maintain it. Maintaining means if you see a crack, you have to fill the crack and then seal it. You should seal every 2 years, but when you start seeing cracks, the whole purpose why driveways fail is because of the water infiltration. Once a crack forms and water gets in there and freezes, it makes the crack wider and wider, and more cracks form, and that is why you have to. But if it's done correctly, it should last you at least 20 to 30 years. And in asphalt, it's the same thing, 20 to 30 years if you maintain it. But the wear and tear of, public streets is little more than 30 years because it's a constant wear and tear. But again, everything is done around budgetary. For some reason, people want a new bathroom before they want a new driveway.
All right, well, that is all the questions I have right now for you, Lenny. Oh, actually, one more. Tim.
Oh, thank you.
Do you do infrared repairs?
Yes, we do infrared repairs as well. We also, everything is done, like I said, with David with engineering, and we work together on whatever spec and scope was given to us. We also do underground sewerage, all that as well, and that all links up to the asphalt.
Great. All right, well, if anybody has any additional questions for Lenny, please feel free to put them into the question box and we'll circle back around a little bit later. Thanks, Lenny.
Oh, thank you.
All right, so next we have Mike. Mike attended Caldwell University, where he was a member of the men's basketball team. He graduated in 2009 with a business degree, and upon graduation, he began his insurance career with Prudential Financial. In 2011, he moved to a local independent insurance broker where he focused on personal lines, small business, and commercial property. In 2014, Mike decided to make insurance his main focus and has been doing so since. His agency was acquired by NFP in 2018 and became part of PeopleFirst this year. Mike is currently responsible for the growth in the New Jersey condo HOA division, as well as a focus in commercial property. Welcome, Mike.
Thanks, Jacqueline. I appreciate that. A little bit more about our agency. I work for Robin Barlow. We did go through a name change from NFP, and it's kind of significant because we changed to PeopleFirst, and we felt that where the direction was going for our company from 2018 and 19 going into this year kind of got away from our roots, the condo business, and we were being more institutionalized on a general basis. So it was important for us to maintain our relationships in the condo world, the marketplace, and whatnot. So that was the reason for our change. And with that said, thank you very much for having me. I hope everyone is doing well, staying safe and healthy as we navigate our way through this pandemic. I would just like to highlight some brief things about cyber liability from a community association standpoint. It's something that we are promoting as an office, and we feel that is a growing trend in the industry. It's something that's going to be a focus for us going into 2021. Regarding community associations, they really have not felt the impact that some other industries have from a cyber or data breach. A typical example that we use would be the Target breach of customers' personal information that was stolen. With technology changing the way we do business, it is important to make sure we review new possible exposures. Technology evolving and emerging has changed exposures dramatically. Some of the new exposures that have come of light: online banking, online owner fee payments, assessment payments, virtual board meetings, which we're all used to nowadays, voting online or by email, any type of email communication between board members, updated community association websites, electronic bulletin boards, even Facebook pages, computer systems, as well as cameras, whether for use or non-use. Essentially, these are all things that have come into light, over the last 20, 30 years. Associations have been around for a lot longer than that, as we know. So it's just always good to keep up with the exposures as they come around. With that being said, most associations we're finding, they do not have the cyber liability coverage, but we always do recommend purchasing it. As some of you know, most of you know, associations store valuable private data, including personal identifiable information that could be subject to federal, state, and local breach notification requirements. The things that are readily available that hackers are looking for would be names, addresses of individuals, bank accounts, social security numbers, driver's licenses, vehicle information, property values, and any financial information received from owners and third parties. As previously said about community association websites and social media accounts, that is just one way that people are looking to kind of see what's going on, how can they learn more about the association, and hackers are trying to take advantage of that. As I said, it hasn't happened in a tremendous amount, but we're hearing more of it. What does cyber liability provide coverage for? Any type of breach of governing documents, unauthorized use, unauthorized use or people hacking into a Zoom, a WebEx call, or even a phone conference. Any type of theft, loss, unauthorized disclosure of private data or third-party information. Any type of theft or destruction of data. And the typical one that most people are used to hearing about are any type of virus, malware, Trojan attacks, or any type of ransomware. Believe it or not, just generally stolen equipment out of a vehicle, maybe left somewhere in an open forum, public space, somebody picks it up. If the computer is not, password encrypted, people can, go into it and, take any information they want, and a hacker obviously has access to do a lot more. Another thing too is that potentially a community association manager might have some confidential information that they could lose equipment, they could be hacked. Invasion of privacy rights. One thing that I found very interesting that I learned recently was the unintended consequence of board member use of personal information in a business email. Basically, if a claim arises, you would have to subpoena their employer because the board member used their business email. That's why it's always recommended to use personal emails. Previously stated was the viruses transmitted from your computer system that could cause a breach in other systems, meaning from your own personal computer. And also the coverage will extend to security and privacy liability, any type of regulatory defense that you need, any penalties, fines, expenses, and costs. And one good caveat as part of the cyber coverage is a privacy breach response within the policy. And essentially what that covers is notification costs, any type of credit monitoring, legal services, computer expert services, public relations, and also crisis management expenses. Those things are very very good to understand having that coverage, because it's basically, after the fact, how are you going to be dealing with this as an association? How are you going to get through it? And it provides services to protect you for that. So just a few things to remember. Technology is our friend, but we need to use it properly, and you should always be discussing your options with these types of insurances with legal counsel as well as your insurance representatives. And I always say have open communication, have a plan and a sound procedure for handling of information. Thank you.
All right, thanks so much, Mike. Let's see if we have any questions. How is the cyber policy rated?
Cyber policy is generally rated on how many units in the association.
Okay. What markets are writing cyber?
Some markets are including it actually as a sublimit on top of the package policy, such as a CAU. But some third-party coverages, companies that are writing it that we've all heard of would be Chubb, Travelers, Hiscox, and Hartford as well.
Looks like we have one more. How much does a policy cost?
Well, that all depends on the rating information, but we're seeing an annual cost maybe $350 to $400 for $250,000 in coverage. So that would be a very generalized amount.
Great. All right, it looks like that's all the questions that we have for you, Mike. I do have one additional that came back for you, Lenny.
Yes.
What do you do with tire dents in parking areas?
Tire dents. Well, that would be a patch. You would cut a seam around the dented area. Well, there's actually two ways of doing it correctly. A lot of people like doing it the wrong way, and that's just filling it with asphalt and rolling it. But the problem with that is the first plow or the first run over with another tile, it gets loosened and it just is wasting your money. But the correct way is cut a seam around the dented area like a pothole, remove that, and tack down. It's like a Atari glue underneath, and then then install the new asphalt and roll it, and then close the seams that you sawed with the wet saw. That's the correct way. But again, people like the other way a little better because it's quicker and cheaper, but that's the correct way of filling up like a little pothole.
All right. Looks like that is all the questions that we have for today. I just want to take a minute to thank everybody, Lenny, David, and Mike for participating, and all of our attendees for viewing today. Again, if you do need a certificate, please email me at jaclyn@CAI-NJ.org, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Have a great day, everybody.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.